my journey has not been easy. So let me start. Nine years ago, I had kidney disease. Actually, the real number is probably more like 10, 11, 12 years, but I don't know exactly when I had kidney disease, chronic kidney disease. But the earliest labs that I could get my hands on was from 9 years ago. So, and it showed, I now know how to read that lab report. It shows that my kidney function was about 43. Patty talked about the GFR, so for me it kind of roughly translates to about 43%. But I didn't know it, and no doctor had diagnosed me. 3 years after that, so about I guess six years ago, my kidney function had dropped to about 37. I still did not know that I had CKD, chronic kidney disease, because it's a silent disease. You feel nothing. Patty mentioned that you feel no symptoms until you have kidney failure, until stage 5, and that was me. So I had no symptoms. My doctors did not diagnose me, but they did diagnose me with high blood pressure and osteopenia, which is kind of a precursor to osteoporosis. And it kind of didn't make sense because, you know, at the time I was, I think I had just turned 40, and maybe in my early 40s, and I was healthy, I was eating well, I was pretty active, and I was not the profile of someone who would have high blood pressure so young, or osteopenia, so it was just kind of a mystery. So another 3 years later, I dropped to about 27%, still feeling nothing. But around that time, I applied for life insurance, and so that was when we got the ball rolling, and that's when I started realizing something was going on. They had sent a nurse to my house and got the EKG, checked my vitals, and she took a urine sample. And I kind of thought, you know, I probably wouldn't, I would be maybe a little bit expensive to insure because of my high blood pressure and my osteopenia. So when the letter of response came, I was shocked because they were not going to insure me at all. And I thought, what? This did not make sense. And so I called and I asked, well, why would not, I mean, maybe I would be a little bit expensive to insure, but to not cover me at all. I was really shocked. They said, you have too much protein in your urine. And that was the first I had heard anything about that, because I thought, no one has ever told me that. I've been going to get my regular checkups. I was still pretty active, eating healthy. That made no sense to me. What does that even mean? Well, that was an insurance company. They're not doctors, so they can't diagnose me. And so they said, well, you can go and talk to your doctor, and if he disagrees, you can always appeal. So I went to my doctor, and I said, what does this mean? I have too much protein in my urine. And he said, well, it means that you have some issues with your kidneys, but we'll just change your blood pressure medication to one that will fix your kidneys as well, and you should be fine. So we switched medication. I was not fine. My kidneys were still an issue. So he was a little bit confused, a little bit puzzled. So he sent me to a nephrologist, a kidney doctor. And so he took a look at me. I was thin. I did not have diabetes. My ankles, he checked my ankles. They were not swollen. Sometimes CKD patients have swollen ankles because fluid builds up because your kidneys are not flushing out the excess fluids in your body. And so on the outside, I looked like someone who really was probably okay. And so he said, well, we'll run some tests, but it doesn't look like anything serious. I ran some tests. Something's going on. So apparently I was more serious than I looked. So he said, well, you have CKD, chronic kidney disease, and no one had ever told me that. It didn't run in my family. This made no sense to me. I didn't feel anything. I was feeling well, and so I just was very confused by that. So he said, well, we'll get an ultrasound. We'll figure out what's going on with you. But know that there's no CKD, there's no treatment, there is no cure. But we can do some things to slow down or maybe stop the progression. But I was already at 27% at that point, so I was diagnosed way too late. So he said, for now, you must obsess over keeping your blood pressure down, because high blood pressure, we saw, causes kidney disease, and kidney disease, chronic kidney disease, causes high blood pressure. So it's a vicious cycle. And so you must watch your high blood pressure. Cut out sodium, don't eat out, because a lot of restaurant foods put in way too much salt, and just the American palate in general, we've gotten so used to eating our food salty, so watch that. And so more tests came back, and then at the end of, I think it was the second appointment, he said, when the time comes, we'll work on getting you a transplant. And I thought, transplant? No, I don't want surgery, and I could never take anybody's kidney. No. I'll be fine with dialysis, because I don't want to impose on anybody. And he said, no, believe me, transplant is by far the better option. And so that started my 2-year, 3-year education on everything kidney. I started reading and researching and learning everything I could, which was a very good thing. I encourage you guys are here, so that's a great step. Continue to learn about kidney disease because it's a very common disease. Patty told you, 1 in 10, I think it's 1 in 10 Americans have it, 1 in 3 are at risk. But of all those people who have the disease, only 1 in 10 know that they have the disease. So I was a classic example. I had it for years and years and years, and doctors weren't even diagnosing me, and apparently they don't always look for that. But it's very common for people to have it and just not know because they don't feel it. Was there a question?
All those years, weren't they taking urine samples? Would they have found the protein number?
Yeah, so I went back to the earliest lab test I could find, and yes, my creatinine was high, and it was flagged as being out of the normal range, and yet doctors don't always, because they're focusing on so many other things. I don't know how common that is. Maybe you can answer that. Yes?
How come the doctor didn't explain to you? The lab test makes you abnormal.
Yes. I don't know. Apparently that's something that sometimes happens. Doctors don't always diagnose, because they're looking for all these other things.
The lab test makes you abnormal.
Yeah.
And you have to check that.
Yeah. That doctor since retired, so I can't go ask him. So maybe there's, but anyway. But it's very common that a lot of people have it and just don't know that they have it. So, what we can do now is to get tested and to get educated and to figure out what it is that we need to look for. Look for that creatinine level and look for these other symptoms. So the fact that they did diagnose me with high blood pressure and osteopenia, even though I didn't fit the profile of someone who would have those at such a young age, that should have been a flag. But in any case, you getting educated is a really key to advocating for yourself, to getting the best care. And so I was doing a lot of reading and researching about that. Yes?
They give you any causes for why you, as a younger person,
Yeah, well, the blood pressure, they didn't explain. They just said sometimes it hits people. For the osteopenia, they did say I started at a lower base. Being petite and Asian, they said that it's, osteoporosis is very common. And so the fact that you started at a lower base, that was his explanation. And that really you're just kind of following a normal trajectory. And so he wasn't too concerned. But anyway.
Is that genetics?
I'm sorry?
Genetic, your parents?
Did
You got it from your parents?
Oh, genetic? Yeah, I asked my mom. She didn't, she has it now, but she didn't have it until much older. So yeah, again, it was all kind of a mystery to me. But again, get educated and learn. And because you begin to know what questions to ask, what to look for. And so anyway, I started reading everything I could. I started learning about living donor, deceased donor, when to get a transplant, when to get evaluated for a transplant. And so that was all good stuff for me. So that was kind of the beginning of my kidney journey, as I knew when I was first diagnosed. And so I went to my doctor and I said, when can I get evaluated for a transplant? Because I had learned in all my research that to get on the transplant wait list, it's a long wait. It's a long wait, especially here in the Bay Area. It could be 7 to 8 years, depending on your blood type and other factors. And so, my doctor at the time said, it's way too young for you, too early for you to get evaluated. Even though I knew from all my reading that when your GFR drops to below 20 or below, and I've even heard some people say 25, you can get evaluated. And I've also learned that you can self-refer for a lot of people. You can self-refer. You don't need a doctor's referral to go get evaluated. But yes, that's right. Okay. So that doctor said, why you're feeling good, why get a transplant now? But I said, but it's going to take time. And so, but anyway, because of all the reading I'd done, I went and I got a second opinion from another nephrologist, which turned out to be a great thing because he said, yes, absolutely, you want to get evaluated because you want to accrue time, especially here in the Bay Area. It's a long wait. And in the meantime, look for a living donor. Because I learned that kidneys from living donors last much longer than kidneys from deceased donors. I also learned that transplanted patients live a much longer and much higher quality of life than patients on dialysis. So I started looking for a kidney donor, which was really, really difficult because, you know, I would never ask anybody to donate a kidney, but even just to put the need out there, to announce my need was just really uncomfortable. But I knew I needed to do that, and so I did. And so I've been surrounded by just a really amazing community. Different people did come forward, and a family member came and got tested. It's a really big, long process. 3 months or 3 to 6 months it takes for you to go through the whole evaluation process. He eventually withdrew his offer because he had some things going on, and so he wasn't able to complete the process. And then I had a second donor, and we went all the way to the end, and we had even set a transplant date, and at the last minute she had to withdraw for other reasons as well. So it ended up being just kind of a long 1.5 year process for me. I had about maybe 8 donors who kind of went through the process. About half of them I know who they are. They actually came and told me, I want to get tested for you. Half of them I actually don't know who they are. They actually went directly to the transplant center and got evaluated. So I was just very blessed, you know, because I had all these people who were willing to do that for me. But it's a huge commitment, and some people eventually, you know, withdrew their offer, and some people just weren't able to pass the, even though they were generally healthy, but the transplant centers have a very high standard. They are very, very protective of donors, which I'm very, you know, happy to hear. I want them to protect the donors, and if there's any risk or unreasonable risk, they will not pass you, even though your own doctors. I had a couple of donors who said, no, I even went back to my donors, my doctor, and he says, I'm healthy, my blood pressure is a little bit high, but it's normal for my age. And they go back to the transplant center and they said, yes, but you know, for us, we have an even higher standard because we really, really want to protect you. So anyway, eventually I did have, it was the husband of one of my husband's cousin, you know, who eventually was medically cleared. And so that was just a really, really great news, and I'm just so grateful for him. But he was not blood compatible. And so a lot of people think, well, you gotta be blood compatible and you have to be that perfect DNA match. And I think that's the biggest myth out there, that you have to, you know, sometimes you hear about these bone marrow drive and you do the cheek swab and you have to find that, you know, perfect DNA match to donate. But really, the better word is suitable, and a suitable match, because the kidney that goes into your body needs to be blood compatible, and then they also have to pass, you know, a few other tests. But the hardest thing is to find someone who's willing and healthy, willing to go through that process, 3 to 6 month long process of being poked and prodded, and to make sure you're really, really healthy, and also who has the time to go through the test, go through major surgery, and then take a month off of work. So it's a really big thing. So this cousin of mine who donated, you know, here we are a month after surgery, and we're both doing great. He is doing great, so we're really glad about that. But I mentioned he was not blood compatible. That's okay, because there's this thing called the big swap. It's sometimes called the paired exchange. There's different registries, but the biggest one is the National Kidney Registry, and so my transplant center, you know, submitted our information, and we were entered into this huge database, and about a month later, you know, they were able to match all the people, and so it was like a 10-way chain, 5 recipients, 5 donors, and so my cousin's kidney flew to the East Coast, because that's where his recipient was, and then my donor was somebody, I have no idea who it is, and you know, they don't reveal that to us, but a female, kind of in her early 30s, and local, and that's all I know about her. But I was told she was in the operating room right next door to mine, and so they took out her kidney and it traveled a couple of feet and into my kidney, into my body, and it's doing just fantastic. But all that took a long time, you know, 1.5 years. So during that process, my kidney function had dropped to about 4%. And that was about the time, for a lot of people, it's just somewhere under 10% when the GFR drops under 10, where they just start to feel sick. which, you know, makes me think kidneys are that amazing, you know, that my kidneys could be functioning at a meager 5% and I don't even feel all that much, which is all the more reason why you have to get tested, because you're not going to feel anything until it's just way too late. And so for me, it was way too late. But my kidneys, at about 5 or 4% was when we started dialysis for me. And I'd be happy to talk to you more about dialysis, about my experience with dialysis, if anybody has questions. But basically, there's two basic kinds: hemodialysis, and that's what most people think about. You go to a center, you get, you know, hooked up, blood leaves your body, goes through this filter, through this giant machine, comes back, and then it filters all the waste from your body and excess fluid. For me, I did something called the peritoneal dialysis, PD for short. I have had a catheter that was surgically placed inside of me, and every night, I do it at home. I get hooked up to a machine, and fluid, this special fluid called dialysate, comes into my body, and kind of through osmosis, it kind of sits in your abdominal, it's called the peritoneum, and through the walls, excess waste, excess fluid and waste gets absorbed into the special dialysate, and then a couple of hours later, they drain that, and then new fluid comes in. So that's how I was able to be sustained. And so that's how I survived that year long while I was waiting for a kidney. So eventually it came, and here we are, and we're doing really well. So that's my story, and my big takeaway for you guys is get tested and get educated. So get tested is a simple, inexpensive test, urine test and blood test. And also to get educated, because the more you know, the more you can advocate for yourself, the more you know the right questions to ask, the more you know when you can get evaluated for a transplant and all that good stuff. So that's all I have to share. Yes?
2 questions.
Yes.
Number 1, you're living with 1 kidney right now.
Oh, yes, we were going to get to that. Yes, so
Can you repeat whatever they asked?
yes, so the question was, I am now living with 1 kidney. Before I answer that, I will say, God gave us 2 kidneys, but you only need 1. So for whatever reason, and that's why people can be a living donor. You don't have to wait until you die before you can give a kidney. So yes, you can, for a healthy person, you can give a kidney and still live a perfectly normal life. And in fact, I had a friend, she says, my sister was born with 1 kidney and they never even knew until she went and had a C-section. They said, by the way, did you know you only have 1 kidney? She lived a perfectly normal life. If you have a healthy 1 kidney, it's fine. That's why you can donate. But anyway, to answer your question, I have 3 kidneys.
3 kidneys?
Yes, I have 3 kidneys, and that's because they keep the old ones. They keep the old ones, so do you want to know where my new kidney is? It's right here, right next to my right hip bone. So it's just sitting there. And they want to keep it kind of close to the bladder, and also I think it's a good area for good blood. Yeah, good circulation, yes. So I have 2, and people ask, well, why don't they? Because they always ask me, well, which kidney are they replacing? I said, none, they're not replacing any. They're just adding, I'm gonna have 3 kidneys. And that's because I've read that even old kidneys are still producing some good chemicals, and there's really no reason to remove the old ones. It's not gonna cause any problems unless you have something like infection or something called polycystic kidney disease, where, you know, cysts grow and grow on your kidneys until it becomes too big. But for most people, they just keep the kidneys there. Yeah. Yes.
The second question is, what is the normal creatinine? Your analysis.
The normal creatinine?
Yeah, normal creatinine.
Around 1?
1. Yes.
Around 1, can be a
Yes.
little lower, can be a little higher.
Yes. So my creatinine before transplant was 14, way high. The day after my transplant, it dropped down to 1.8. Or no, maybe more like, oh, I'm sorry, I think like 3, and then the next day it dropped to like 1.8. It just dropped really fast. The nurses were just gushing at how fast and how well my kidney, my super kidney was working. Yeah.
And your GFR.
My GFR, yes, went from 3 to like 50, and then the next day to like 70 something. Yeah, it was just amazing. So, yes.
before you went on dialysis, did you experience any illness? What symptoms did you have?
Yes. So I always ask, when do you start dialysis? What number? Well, it's never just a number. It's different from patient to patient. It's a discussion you have with your doctor based on the number, but also how you're feeling. So for me, it was around 5 or 4% when I started feeling headaches, nausea, a metallic taste in my mouth, and something I called, for me, I call it sleepy brain, because even though I didn't necessarily feel physically tired, my brain would just feel a little fuzzy, and at moments I would just kind of zone out and zone back in, and it just, I felt like I just wanted to sleep even though I was not physically tired. So, you know, it affects your brain. If you, you know, I know people sometimes get kind of absent-minded or they can't think clearly. That's another common.
Are you still peeing?
Oh, am I still peeing?
No,
were you? Very little, yes, but I was some. And yes, every quarter they would have me collect a urine sample, and it was just kind of remarkable how even 3 months before the transplant, I was producing some, and I think like a month before, I was hardly, it was like a huge drop. And I know for some kidney failure patients, they stop going altogether. But yes, I still did have some residual functioning.
What?
Are you still drinking though?
Yes, I was, yes. But it's the dialysis. Dialysis removes excess fluid, yes.
Oh, so you don't have to pee?
Well, some. It's different patient to patient,
I
but
see.
it does go down, yes.
I see.
Yes. I still had some, but a lot less.
Prior to dialysis, did you have a reduction in your flow? Your urine?
I don't think so, no, I still have regular flow, but I just wasn't feeling all that good. But I did notice, I now know what that meant, but my urine was foamy, and that's an indication of too much protein. Yes, yes.
Are there issues with kidney rejection very much?
Repeat the question.
Oh, is there an issue with kidney rejection? So that might be better answered by Patty, but I will say that they evaluate that very, very carefully. Kidney transplant is one of the most successful organ transplants. They've got it down to the science. And the anti-rejection medications have gotten so good that they can, you know, make a kidney work. I mean, not just any kidney, they make sure you're blood compatible and they make sure these, you know, I forget what that cross match.
Antibodies.
Oh yeah, the antibodies. You don't have antibodies against your donor. Yes. Okay.
All done? Thank you so much, Doris. That was fantastic. I'm going to do a little plug for, you have 2 evaluations. So you have one for the Community Health Resource Center and you have one for us.